There is a lot that goes into building your character for what you want them to do correctly in Genshin Impact. Today we're going over all of the stats that you can put on your character and which ones you should be putting on to make your character do what you want them to do. And let's get right into it for you guys. So the first one is attack. We have attack. This is going to affect most of the damage that you do for the large majority of the characters in your game, from your auto attacks to your skills to your charge attacks. Attack percent is the baseline stat that is going to be multiplied by your skill multiplier, multiplied by your crit chance, your crit damage, your elemental damage. Those things all take your attack into account. So that's why it's been stated several times on this channel that as you're starting out, attack percent is where you want to focus on until you start getting into the higher ranks, 35, 40, where you can start making complete builds for your characters. Defense, alternatively, is what is mashed up against the opponent's attack, their opponent's skill damage. All of that stuff is going to be factored against your defense. So those are the two baseline things for doing damage in Genshin Impact. So now that we know our base damage factor, attack, and your skill multipliers, you want to have your attack as a solid baseline. After that, you can start looking at the other things that will affect your skills. Elemental mastery is not one of those. We're going to cover that later. It's a little bit more complicated. So let's continue talking about skill damage. We have crit hit rate and crit hit damage. You start with a base 5% crit hit rate and 50% crit hit damage. This simply means that if you do land that crit, and your crit hit rate obviously is your odds of actually landing that crit, you're going to do extra damage percentage wise with your critical hit damage. So early on, this is very hard to actually try to maximize out for most of the characters in the game. Even so, it's something that you want to really avoid until late endgame. We start getting those 4-star, 5-star artifacts and weapons where you can get your crit hit rate 50, 55, 60, 70, 80% crit hit chance, and then you can start putting crit hit damage afterwards. That's because as you're increasing your crit hit rate with gear and artifacts and weapons, that's damage that you're not putting into increasing your attack, increasing your elemental damage skill. And the trade-off of getting yourself to 30% crit hit chance and 70% crit hit damage, you might be sacrificing 40, 50, 60, 70, 80%, 90, 100% attack just so you can have a 30% chance to do 50% more damage, when you can just simply double your attack around there or so and just constantly increase the damage for every attack that you do instead of playing the odds poorly in your favor with low crit hit chance. If you get some crit hit chance as you're leveling up through the game, that's fine, but don't make it your focal point until the end of the game there. Now let's also get into some other damage elemental types. This is going to be your elemental damage bonuses. There's one in here for every element in the game, as well as non-elemental physical damage bonus, and I want to talk about that because that is the one most people are getting confused with. So we have Pyro, Hydro, Dendro, Electro, Anemo, Cryo, Geo elemental damage. If you see your attacks doing damage and it's in a non-white number, if it's red, blue, purple, if it's any of those colored numbers, that means that you are doing that type of elemental damage. So if you have a purple number, electro damage is going to boost up that property by however much your electro damage percent is. So if I'm attacking with Oz on Fischl and she's doing her normal attacks there that are white based, but then Oz is getting in there and attacking with the purple numbers, Oz is doing electro damage and Fischl is doing physical damage. So there's some characters out there who do physical damage on their normal and charged attacks, but they have the ability, like Noelle, to pop her ultimate, pop her elemental burst, and it converts her damage into Geo type. And physical damage bonus isn't going to help you out in that circumstance due to the fact that, you've guessed it, you're no longer doing pure physical damage, you're actually doing Geo damage. So there's a lot of characters out there who have a skill like this. We've seen Shang Yun convert his physical damage into cryo damage, or units like Keqing who convert her physical attacks into electro attacks. So for those characters out there, you want to avoid the physical damage if you find yourself constantly imbuing yourself with their different abilities and effects. However, if you are constantly using someone who's doing white hit damage, they're hitting with their normal attacks, they're hitting with their charge attacks, and the number is white, that means physical damage up is going to be working for you in that instance, and you're going to get that effect applied to your attacks. Now let's also talk about some of the advanced stats as far as healing bonus, incoming healing bonus. So healing bonus is the increased healing that your character does do. So say you have access to Barbara. If you give her healing bonus, she's going to heal everyone else on your team by that extra amount. Incoming healing bonus is how much you obviously receive from that healing. So if you're putting incoming healing bonus on Barbara, she's going to be healing only herself for that extra healing. However, if you put healing bonus on her, she's going to heal everyone in your team if she's healing everyone with that incoming healing bonus. Energy recharge is how fast you charge your elemental burst when elemental particles drop, as well as the elemental orbs drop. If you want to have a faster ultimate, if that's the sort of team that you're putting together, then elemental recharge, very strong on someone like Vency, who can charge his elemental burst back up as fast as possible, maybe even get it off a little bit, get it charged up before that cooldown even comes back, keep popping those off. Same thing with someone like Barbara, if you really want to have her elemental burst up all the time, that big heal, that big healing over time as well, coupled with certain catalysts that she can equip, then that is something you should look towards as well. Now we also have reduced cooldown, which actually only has a certain couple of things in the game right now. This reduces the cooldown for your elemental skill and elemental burst, and honestly the easiest way to get access to this right now is by having double Anemo characters in your party. You'll get 5% off of your reduced cooldown skill. As far as gear is concerned, it seems either non-existent or incredibly rare in the game right now, and this is sort of a stat you can't really get access to, but it is a very powerful stat if we ever get access to a large amount of it. If you could get 50% reduced cooldown, that means you're getting twice as many elemental bursts off, twice as many elemental skills off as before, because if your cooldown in your elemental skill was 10 seconds, you can use it once every 10 seconds in that situation, obviously, but if it was 5, now you're using it twice every 10 seconds, so you're going to be able to use that skill twice as often. So this is going to be a very powerful stat that we might actually gain access to in the future, but for right now, we cannot. Powerful shield is going to affect how strong your different shields are going to be. This is simply for someone like Noelle who has a barrier up. If there's any other characters that are using barriers and you're a fan of elemental damage absorbing or physical damage absorbing barriers, this is going to help you out there as well. Now let's talk about the big bad one here, the most confusing one, elemental mastery. So elemental mastery is going to affect your elemental combination. So if you apply, say, fire and water, you're going to get vaporized, or if you apply ice and fire, you're going to gain access to melt. Every different element in the game sort of has a combination with itself, from crystallize, superconduct, electrocharge, shatter, swirl. These are all going to get buffed up by elemental mastery here. Now vaporize and melt have a lower multiplier increase from elemental mastery, but that is also because vaporize and melt are some of the hardest hitting baseline elemental combinations in the game. And here's where elemental mastery plays an important role in your team and in your compositions. These elemental reactions, they do not factor your attack into the damage calculation. They factor in and look at elemental mastery, as well as the elemental resistances of your opponents, as well as your character level. They're all slightly different than each other, and some of them, like Vaporize and Melt, have a different damage multiplier based on what order you apply them in. Vaporize and Melt are the only two that we know of right now that actually works that way. For Vaporize to have the highest multiplier, which I do believe is 200% base multiplier, you want to apply the fire first and then do the water. That is how you see crazy videos out there of like Barbara hitting for like 25k. She's not really hitting for 25k. The elemental mastery stacked Barbara, because elemental mastery, guys, remember, it doesn't factor in your attack, so you can maximize elemental mastery on somebody, and whoever is detonated also is the one whose elemental mastery is taking effect on that elemental chain proc. I'm gonna repeat that for you guys so you guys understand this. Elemental mastery is only for the elemental chains, and it's only taken into account whoever is proccing it, which means you do not need to have elemental mastery on both your characters. Say you're doing an overload team where you have a fire character and a lightning character. You need to look at who is putting the effect on first and who is detonating the effect with the second element. The character who's doing the second element, that is the character who needs the elemental mastery. You could have 1 million elemental mastery on, say, Xiangling here, and I could have 1 million elemental mastery here and 0 on Fischl. If I apply the fire first with the teddy bear and then I swap into Fischl and detonate it, it's going to detonate with Fischl's elemental mastery, and in this case it's going to be 0. However, if I reverse that and I set up the bird and I hit lightning on everybody and I detonate it with Boba, I'm going to be utilizing my full elemental mastery in that circumstance. So that is one that you definitely need to take a look at, and it's probably the most confusing one right now currently in Genshin Impact. This has been tested a lot onto beta. From all the different beta tests there, and it's definitely something that you should really take into account when building your team. This is going to be a fantastic thing for you if you can utilize it properly. So what does this mean when we're building a character? As you're starting up, obviously focus on attack. That is the baseline thing that's going to just increase the raw amount of damage that you do. After that, you need to take a look at your character, right? Are they doing a lot of normal attacks and charge attacks that are non-elemental? If they're non-elemental, that's when you go into physical damage and probably a little bit of crit hit rate and crit hit damage as you get to optimize your team with 5-star artifacts, because 5-star artifacts have more stats available to them, and you're going to be able to utilize that. So that sort of character might have a good amount of attack, a good amount of physical damage up, and then maybe like a set like the Gladiators set or the Martial Artist set that increase your normal attack and charge damage as well. And those are going to all stack together, and you can have a fantastic character there for you. However, you have someone like Fischl, and say you want Fischl to detonate the elemental proc rate of Fischl and Xiangling every once in a while with the overload effect. You're going to want to build up her attack, because Oz still damage based off of her attack. Even though Oz is on the field by itself, it's still using Fischl's stats there. So you want her to do some decent damage there. She's going to apply the lightning element to your opponents there. And then between Xiangling and Fischl, which one you ever want to have detonate, you want them to have the highest elemental mastery. In this case, a lot of the times, guys, you're going to be having both of them proc the detonate over and over and over and over, especially if you have a high constellation, high ascension Fischl. She might be proccing it more than Xiangling in that case. It's really going to come down to how you play your team, and that's what we want to give you guys here in this video, is the knowledge and the information to play the game how you want. There's no one correct way to do anything in Genshin Impact. If you want to have a high energy recharge Xiangling, so she has her ultimate up all the time, use that elemental burst with some decent elemental mastery. Maybe you don't want to play her like that. Maybe you want to play Xiangling as a physical damage dealing character. Then you want to give her attack, crit hit rate, crit hit damage, as well as physical damage increase, right? So as long as you guys are fully understanding the stats in the game, you can pretty much do whatever you want open-ended. Yeah, some things can be better than other things. Some characters work a little bit better in one way than the other, but at the end of the day, as long as you're using the stats correctly, you can sort of do pretty much whatever you want to do in Genshin Impact. It's very open-ended. If you guys like this video, go ahead, share it, hit that like button. If you want to see more Genshin Impact stuff, check out the Genshin Impact playlist as well as the description for this YouTube channel. And then until then, guys, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.